Good evening, it's 7:40 p.m. at the capital city of Ulaanbaatar, and now it's Today's guest time. Today I have invited Mrs. Patricia Ellis, who is an international communication coordinator at the Attitudinal Healing International, and she has been working with the organization for the last 30 years. Good evening, Maya.
Good evening.
Thank you for receiving our invitation.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So, thank you. Let's start talking about the support group. What is support group, and and tell us about your organization, Attitudinal Healing International.
Yes, thank you. Attitudinal Healing International was started by an American doctor about 40 years ago in the United States.
40 years ago.
And it came out of his work with children who had cancer, kids that he worked with and their families back in the 70s. There weren't any kinds of support groups or systems for children back then, and he and his friends were the first ones who started this kind of support program for children with cancer and their families.
So what is support group? Because the way I see it is from movies.
Yes, of course.
People with illness or some kind of drug abuse, they gather around and share their opinions, share their problems. Is that the one we are talking about, support group? Because Mongolia is not so familiar with these groups.
Yes, back in the 70s, it is exactly what you're describing. It's a kind of opportunity for people with similar concerns to come together, share their concerns and their worries, and help each other to find a way to have less stress, more peace as they deal with these challenging situations.
So how did it start out? I mean, what was the beginning of these support groups?
Well, in our work, the very beginning was through Dr. Jampolsky's work with children who had cancer. And the story goes that he was visiting a child in the hospital who was very seriously ill at the time. And Dr. Jampolsky, our founder, heard the child ask another doctor, what is it like to die? And the doctor got very frustrated and just changed the subject. And Jerry found at that moment that he realized that doctors were not educated to address those kinds of issues with their patients. And he also realized that the children couldn't speak to their parents about those kinds of fears because the parents were so sad and fearful themselves. So Jerry and a few of his friends brought together a group of children, I think about 10 or 12 kids of varying ages from about 7 to 15.
7 to 15,
And decided to create an environment that was very safe for them so that they could explore their fears, explore their questions about their treatments, about dying, about being sick. And in the process, he found that his own fears were healed by being with those children.
So we're talking about 1970s, right?
Yes, 40 years ago, before you were born probably.
I know, yes. I'm not 40 yet.
Right.
Wow, and then that's how the support groups started.
That first one,
that we see in the movies, we see today.
Yes, at that time there were other types of support groups in the United States for adults, but for children there was nothing. That was the first one for children. And since then, it's grown very organically, even from that very beginning, because the kids met for a while, and the parents noticed that the kids were not so fearful and anxious. And so they asked, can we have our own support group? The parents.
Parents asked
Yes,
now.
so the parents wanted to do it, and so they started their group.
Parents didn't know. Parents have the most worries about their children as well, right?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
they have so much problem to deal with. They don't know how to deal with these diseases, illnesses, the pain?
No, not at all, not at all. And when I first came to the center in the early 80s, my daughter was very ill. So I can speak from personal experience that the fear and the guilt I had about my child's illness and not being able to make her well really impacted my ability to enjoy the time we had together and really express my love to her. And so through this work, I really learned how to move past that fear and guilt and to be with my child, even though she was ill, to enjoy our life together.
It's maybe an obvious question, but what is the purpose of the group?
The purpose is for people to come together and help each other discover how to experience more peace of mind, how to experience less stress, less anxiety, and to actually be able to navigate through their challenging times, staying calm and peaceful inside of themselves. And that's what they help each other do.
Even though they are facing all these pains and hurts, they have to be peaceful within.
Yes. Well, they don't have to be, but there are tools available to help them look at their situation in a different light so that they can have more peace if they choose.
Very interesting. Well, next interesting thing is attitudinal healing.
Yes.
To me, it's a very new term. Tell us about it. Tell our audience about the attitudinal healing.
So the idea of attitudinal healing is that the thoughts that we hold in our minds and the attitudes that we view our lives through have a huge impact on how we experience life, whether we're happy or unhappy, whether we're peaceful inside or in conflict inside. And that those attitudes and those thoughts are really a choice that we
make.
Yes, even though all of those circumstances on the outside are not in our control. Certainly, we can't choose whether our children are sick or not. We can't choose most things that happen to us in our lives, whether, but we can choose what's going on the inside.
Inside, yes.
And so that's what attitudinal healing helps people to do, is to become conscious about those moment-by-moment choices that we're making all the time inside of ourselves. And most of the time we aren't even noticing that they're choices.
So the attitudinal healing works on directing people's attitude towards positive way, or how does it work? What do you do? It sounds like connected with psychology and spirituality, maybe religious views.
Yes, it can sound like all of those things. And the idea that our founder had from the very beginning was to utilize universal principles that are common to all or most cultural traditions and belief systems, but to present them in a way and to communicate them in a way that's not religious at all. So attitudinal healing is not connected with any particular spiritual path. It's not connected with any specific religion. It's the intention is to create an environment where the concepts that can be helpful and meaningful during crisis time are accessible to everyone, regardless of their personal beliefs or religious or cultural traditions.
Right. So how many countries have your organization and you worked so far?
Well, I haven't worked in all of these countries, but since it started 40 years ago in a very organic way, it's been introduced into 60 countries around the world.
Around the world,
yes.
Without any marketing?
No marketing, no promotion. Jerry has written a number of books, our founder, and people read his books and then they, find out about the work, or people attend a workshop and decide that they would like to bring this work into their own community, so they invite us to come there.
So from the organization perspective, how is it financed? Because there must be some kind of expenditure.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, of course.
To rent the environment, all sorts of things. How does it finance itself?
Well, not in a very traditional way. Almost all of the organizations around the world are all independent. So when Attitudinal Healing International goes and supports someone in Mongolia or China or Africa to begin the work in their own community, we support them and we mentor them, but we aren't in control of them. They have their own independent organizations in every country. Right. Most of them are NGOs.
NGOs, right.
And either they're just grassroots organizations or they're formal nonprofit organizations. Right. We normally, in the international organization, we are funded through individual donors, through writing grants. In 2011, I believe, we had a grant to do some work here in Mongolia with organizations working with people with HIV.
HIV, right.
So that was, that happened back then.
Because the reason I came up with the question is, so let's say someone is sick and, want to have help from you. Does he have to pay? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
To get attitudinal healing from you guys?
Yes. No. So that was one of the things that was really important to Dr. Jampolsky from the beginning, was that when people are in crisis, they're already experiencing so many pressures and so much financial burden usually when someone is ill. So he wanted them to have access to meaningful support without the extra burden of having to pay. So anywhere in the world where attitudinal healing support groups are offered, they're always offered free of charge.
Free of charge?
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
That's very nice.
Yes.
And it doesn't have any religious, dividend.
Not
division.
at all.
Not at all.
No.
All secular.
Yes, totally secular, open to anyone regardless of their tradition.
Right. Let's talk about Mongolia.
Okay.
It's your first time here. How do you like it so far?
Oh, it's so wonderful. I hope this isn't my last visit to Mongolia.
Oh, no.
It's my first one. I've had the good fortune to meet many Mongolian people in the United States.
In the United States?
Yes, yes.
So you are familiar with Mongolians?
Yes, through friends that I've known in the United States, and so I've known how wonderful and friendly and intelligent
thank you.
Mongolian people are, but I never had experienced the environment, and so that's in addition to the warmth and the kindness of the people. The environment is just almost overwhelming. It's so beautiful.
You've been to countrysides?
Yes, I've been to the countryside a couple of times. And when we came here, we took the train from Beijing to Ulaanbaatar. So we got to see so much more of the countryside that way too.
So what was your intention, the first intention? Visiting Mongolia maybe the first, and then did you do some lectures or?
Yes, Arja Rinpoche at the Center for Compassion and Wisdom here at the hospital close by here.
Yeah, it's close by.
Yes. He invited me to offer a workshop here, which I did last weekend. And it was a little bit different than our traditional workshops in that usually they're open to the public and there's a wide range of people from different backgrounds who come. This time it was specifically for health professionals and mental health professionals and NGOs who were interested in incorporating the kind of support groups and work that we do into their organizations, into the hospitals and clinics.
So you did it for the professionals, so that those professionals can spread the knowledge.
Yes, yes. So we, our workshops are very interactional and interactive. So we don't do a lot of lecturing. We do some lecturing and a lot of opportunity for people to talk with each other, to apply what we're talking about in their own lives, and to see, you know, how meaningful these ideas can be in their professional and home life.
Right, right. Well, unfortunately, we have limited time.
Yes, yes.
So thank you. I will leave the last minutes to you. And if there's anything you want to say to them, to our audience, Mongolians, you know, people who are watching this, what would that be?
Well, first, Bakhla.
Bakhla.
It's been my great pleasure to meet you and to get to know Mongolia from a different perspective. And to be so welcomed, and I feel like the Mongolian people could teach the world about hospitality and warmth.
Ah, that's very nice.
That's what I'm, in one of our ideas in attitudinal healing is that we're all students and teachers to each other.
To each other.
Yes, and so even though I came here to offer my experience to some of the Mongolian people, I have received so much wisdom in listening to all of you. Yes.
Oh, thank you. It's a great comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Please come back.
I will.
And next time we will meet here.
Okay.
Yes?
Sounds great.
And we're going to talk about how the support groups are developed.
Yes.
In Mongolia.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for today. Thank you for being with us. You're watching Today. We will see you on next Tuesday with more news and updates. You have a good one. Bye-bye.